Wales and Australia this weekend, folks, from Cardiff. Both squads in kind of similar positions, but a bit of a narrative change over the last week. Wales and Australia in 2024 have not had the greatest time. Last place in the Six Nations, last place in the Rugby Championship, but Joe's been picking up a few wins with this Aussie side, which is not something you can say for Gats thus far, as they are on a 10-match losing run. Remember, both these sides are very young. Average age is around 25 years old, certainly younger than the vast majority of the other sides out there. Maybe the Italians are the only one kind of similar. But as I said, the narrative's changed a little bit for the Wallabies with their upset win over England last week, whereas the pressure has been heaped on Gats with that loss at home to Fiji. But one win can really turn things around. Joe Schmidt even mentioned he feels more pressure this week than last week because now there are actually some expectations on his side to get a win. They've both named their sides. We'll go through them, some stats, predictions. You guys can let us know your thoughts on how this one is going to go, plus the old recent history as well, because they have played some games this year. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. There's still plenty of rugby stuff to come this weekend. Wales. Little bit of a change side. Remember, Mason Grady went off early in last week's game against Fiji. He is out, I think, pretty long term with the ankle surgery on the horizon for him, so that's unfortunate news. But Tom Rogers comes into the side to replace him on the right wing. The front row is the same. Gareth Thomas, Dewey Lake and Archie Griffin. They will be looking to potentially push the Aussies around a little bit at scrum time because the Aussies are without their premier tight head prop in Taniela Tupou, but at least get parity and then build a platform from there. Dewey Lake is captain. He was one of the top tacklers for Wales last week, I think behind only Tame Plumtree with 14, although he did concede a couple of penalties. Will Rowlands and Adam Baird continue on in their experienced second row. They will potentially be looking to get part of the maul going because that is something that worked successfully for them against Australia earlier in the year. James Botham, Jack Morgan, Aaron Wainwright is a kind of shifted up back row. So Jack Morgan takes the spot of Tommy Reffel, who drops to the bench. James Botham takes the number 6 jersey and Aaron Wainwright continues on at number 8. They still have Chris Chiunza there on the bench, filling in as the kind of lock replacement, but could fill in as a loose forward if needs be. Bevan and Anscombe as they changed 19 combo, with Bevan getting the nod. Remember, he was on the bench last week, kind of came on late in the piece on the right wing, so he'll actually get a chance to play some proper 9 this week. Rodri Williams comes in as the replacement 9. Anscombe is given the reins at 10 once again. The midfield has been Thomas and Max Llewellyn, that is unchanged. Blair Murray scored a try on debut last week, which was nice. Got himself into a little bit of space, although also found it tough to tackle Joshua Tuisova. He's not the first one to have that issue. And then Cam Winnett, 17 carries, 7 defenders beaten last week. He's a little dude, but he is surprisingly efficient on the carry. We'll see if he's able to get much if the Aussie boys kick it to him at fullback. Elias Smith and Asarati, unchanged front row replacements. Chiunza and Reffel, as I mentioned, the 2 other forward replacements. So it's a 5-3 split with Williams, Costello and Eddie James rounding out the 3 back replacements. I will be curious to see what kind of time Sam Costello comes on. He came on a little bit earlier than expected last week when he filled in on the wing. Hopefully Wales have got their kind of communications a bit clearer with who's going to replace who, but with a 5-3 split this week, there's a little bit less risk of guys playing out of position. For the Wallabies, there is a big call to bench Joseph Suaalii after his breakthrough debut last week. I don't think it's terribly, bad for Schmidt to do so. How's bad the best word that I can think of there? He's going to be lambasted for not giving the guy another game. He's still there on the bench, but I get it. He's a 21-year-old guy. You've got Samu Karevi waiting in the wings. You want to give him a game. Ikitau was also an experienced campaigner, plays really well last week, sets up that final try. You've got options. There's no real need to burn young Joseph Suaalii out early, and you can bring him on to add some impact from the bench and maybe just dampen a little bit of the expectations because he had such a good debut. If he doesn't perform at the same level in that second week, maybe people are talking about him being fizzling out, not being able to maintain the performance level. So you potentially take a bit of the pressure off him by putting him to the bench. And as I said, Karevi and Ikitau is still a pretty bloody good midfield. So I think it's fine. Front row has changed with Ala Alatoa getting promoted to take the place of Tupou who has apparently been only on light duties this week with a little bit of a niggling injury that he's been carrying for a wee while. So it's a chance for Alatoa to captain the side. Scrummaging hasn't really been up to scratch since he recovered from a long injury layoff, I want to say over a year ago, the one that ruled him out of the World Cup. But I don't know, fingers crossed he's able to give it a good crack up against the Welsh. Fassler and Bell are alongside him. Bell was magnificent on the ball carry last week. Frost and Skelton as a changed second row, so the big unit that is Will Skelton will certainly add to the weight behind Alatoa as he pushes those extra few kilos in at scrum time, so that'll hopefully help out the Wallabies in that area, and they're able to do so with Udu coming in at number 6, so Bellatini switches to 8 with the absence of Harry Wilson for this one, who's unavailable, so you do have an extra line-out option with Udu being another one of those kind of lock-loose forward hybrids. McCright, who made like 16 tackles last week, continues on the open side for the Wallabies. Nick White and Lolosio is the 19 combo, so White comes into the 23. Jake Gordon's got a big cut from last week, which they don't want to risk kind of opening up again, so Nick White comes in. Lolosio continues on. I certainly had one of his better games for the Wallabies last week, you feel. If the forward pack can get some go forward, we may be able to see him unleash at a better level than we've usually seen from him at international level. Karevi and Ikitau, like I mentioned, bloody good midfield, despite the fact that Suoli is on the bench. Jorgensen, with that game-winning try last week, is promoted from the bench to the left wing. Remember, there's no Dylan Peach. He's also out injured. Kellaway continues on the right wing. And then Tom Wright, who was finding all kinds of space last week, he continues on at fullback. Bench-wise, Paingamosa, Slipper, and Nongor. Nongor comes into the 23 as your replacement tight head. Salakai, Lotto, and Gleeson, the 2 forward replacements, same as last week. And then 3 backs on the bench. McDermott, who adds a bit of zip whenever he comes on. Donaldson, and then Suali'i, like I mentioned. So we'll see if he can get some of that aerial game, that offloading game going when he does come on. Stats-wise for these teams, Wales' attacking numbers remain poor. Of all the T1 teams, they've got the lowest average run meters, like 314. There are teams which average more than, a lot of them average more than 400 meters a game. Some are close to 500 meters a game. So the fact that Wales are closer to 3 than 4, easily a lot closer to 3, is a big separating factor between them and everyone else. So the lowest for defenders beaten, averaging 17. Everyone else is 20 plus. Clean breaks, Wales is at 3.5 a game. Everyone else is at least 4, some are 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 clean breaks a game. So the just X-factor attacking stuff is just not there for Wales, and the quarter 4 has tended not to be their finest hour. They've only once kept an opponent scoreless in the final 20 this year, but I think in 4 of their 9 games, they themselves have been kept scoreless. So it's not been the happiest hunting ground for the Welsh in the final 20. They do score a few maul tries, though, which has been a little bit of a weapon. They've conceded a couple, like against South Africa, they conceded a couple. But, you know, if they can get a few maul tries going, and remembering it's a young side, get on the front foot early, have a lead going into the final 20, you never know. For the Wallabies, I mean, their first 6 games under Joe probably had equally as bad attacking stats as the Welsh have had in 2024. Their average meters a carry, which is usually a pretty good marker of how well you're getting forward. You know, 4 is the magic number. The Wallabies were at 2.8 meters a carry for their first 6 games, which is very similar to what Wales have now. Very kind of poor. Most sides are well closer to 4, or some are above 4. The Wallabies were at 2.8. Whereas in the last 4 games, they are at 3.8. So things seem to be kind of clicking now for the Wallabies. They've by no means won those last 4, but at least attacking-wise, there seems to be a few things starting to go right. The first quarter has been their best quarter for accumulating points, even though they only managed 3 in the opening 20 against England last week. That's tended to be their strongest across the course of the season, but it was nice to see them actually come home strong against England last week. And then their goal kicking has actually been really solid. 87% across the course of the season is certainly right up there. A lot of teams are in the 70s, including Wales. So if the Wallabies kick their goals, get their attack clicking, they probably will justify that favourites tag which they go into this game with. Across the last 5 games, the Aussies have actually just edged it 3 games to 5. That goes back to 2021, so most of those games are relatively recent. There is one blowout amongst those games. That is obviously last year's Rugby World Cup, where it was a record win, 40 points to 6. But every other game these teams have played within those last 5 has been within 10 points. There's an 8-point win, a 9-point win, a 5-point win, and a 1-point win. These guys tend to have proper ding-dong battles. It's predicted to kind of be something similar this week. The algorithm, that's the Rugby Forecast algorithm, is predicting the Wallabies, but only by 2. The bookies are saying the Wallabies by 5. So the punter's putting a little bit more money on the Aussies than the Rugby Forecast algorithm is. If you want to check out the Rugby Forecast algorithm, they do have a betting analysis tool, which basically compares their machine learning algorithm against the bookmakers' odds that they are setting. Because remember, the bookmakers, their odds kind of fluctuate depending on how much money goes on the games, and they've got an over-round on there as well, which basically always keeps the odds in their favour. But the betting analysis tool that Rugby Forecast has built basically looks out for times when the bookies have potentially got games mispriced, so kind of better value, not necessarily telling you who's going to win, that'd be gold, but telling you where there are some potentially valuable bets to be placed. They color code it red, green, and yellow. Kind of red is kind of no-go. Green, there might be a little bit of value there. So if you want to check that out, link down in the description. Use the code 2CentsRugby, get 20% off your first 3 months, and they give you the first month free anyway. So check that one out. It is certainly a very useful tool. It is on at the Principality in Cardiff. It is a 4:10 kickoff in the evening, late afternoon. Not bad for us in New Zealand, kind of bad for you guys in Australia. I think it's like 3 in the morning on the East Coast. Probably even worse for the West Coast. James Dolman, the Kiwi, is the referee for this one. Fingers crossed he has a good game. You guys let us know your thoughts. Rank 11 Wales up against rank 8 Australia. Do you think Australia go good form 2 weeks in a row, or do you think this is the game where the Welsh finally get things to click and pick up a much needed win? You guys let us know your thoughts. Subscribe to the channel, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.